future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Yes. Welcome back to the Larryyatesasis Show. I haven't been here for a few days, and thank you guys for sticking in there with us. Miss Carolyn Wilkins was here. Actually, I was a little bit jealous of Carolyn because, you guys gave her just a little bit too much love last time when she was here. And I'm kidding. I'm just glad to be back. I was on the East Coast, and I got to enjoy some cold weather, and all my friends say, well, man, aren't you freezing back there? Are you kidding me? Oh, God, I love it. In fact, I'm going to post some of my snowman kind of pictures and stuff. But, and in fact, Carolyn is going to be here in a minute. I had a little computer glitches that she had to go and take care of for me. I'm giving her a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and out for being, anyway. But anyway, I'm glad to be back here, and I got a lot of emails from you guys and some text messages and stuff that, and I really appreciate some of the questions and some of the stuff that you've asked me to discuss and talk about. And we have learned with the Larryyatesasis Show and others and families and friends that this hour go by so fast. When I first started the show, and I would sit here and I say to myself, dang, what am I going to do with an hour? And guess who's walking in? Give us an applause over there. You have an applause over there. Miss Carolyn Wilkins just walked in the door. And Carolyn, I will let her get a little situated here. How you doing?
I'm supposed to tell them I'm late.
I didn't tell anybody you were late. They see you coming in right on time. Look at your hair. What'd you do with your hair? That's pretty.
Thank you.
That's pretty.
I allowed the beautician to take her liberty.
I was just telling. You know what I just mentioned? I said to a few of my friends out there, I'm feeling like they're abandoning me because they was bragging about how great you was doing the show, and I'm like, wait a minute here.
Well, thank you. I always appreciate the opportunity to share what's going on in the world from this platform.
Yes.
And last week we had Candace Conicelli, who's doing something this coming Saturday in honor of Season for Nonviolence. And today our show is about that also.
What I want to do before we get started, and I was just explaining to the guests here that when we first started the show, I used to sit here and say, wow, what am I going to do for a whole hour? And then we find out that an hour just go by so quick. Mm-hmm. So what I want to do, let me just monologue a little bit here. And I have to say something with so much violence and so much hatred in the world. And a friend of mine hit me up with an email and told me what's going on in the gay community. What state is that? Arkansas? Then you
yes.
Indiana.
Indiana,
and the.
But Arkansas pulled back.
But it started with Indiana.
It did, yes.
And so my focus was on what was going on in Indiana. Mm-hmm. And I'm, wait a minute, freedom of religions, and then here it is, within these laws that they could not serve someone because of their sexual preference or gender or whatever, because they're gay or lesbian. And that was pretty shocking that someone wanted to put this into law. Mm-hmm. And being an African American, I understand when someone wants the law to be against your freedoms and your rights. And I can never endorse that. But what really shocked me was that in the state of California, someone trying to put on the voting tab that they could shoot gays.
Well, that's in San Francisco. It is an insane law that is not a law, but it is a petition that's being brought forth for the ballot. And apparently San Francisco has the freedom for anyone to be able to put whatever they want on the ballot as long as they can pay for it.
And I'm saying to my gay friends and lesbian friends to that community, and I've said it on this show, we talked about it on this show, that when gay marriages came in, and especially in the state of California, the gay community forget that the people didn't vote the law in. It had to go to Supreme Court, so the court system made it. What that tells me that there's a lot of people that is still against the gay community. And I never thought.
Well, I call that a lot of ignorance.
I agree. I just never thought
yes.
I lived to see someone want to put something on the ballot that makes it legal to kill someone because of that.
Well, I haven't had the chance to look into it in more detail, but I'm hoping it's rescinded.
Why don't we do this, Pastor Q? Mm-hmm. Let's introduce Pastor Q, because would you mind getting in on this conversation?
Because I'm sure
Absolutely.
he is.
I was going to wait and introduce
yes.
Pastor Q, and I was going to do this monologue and go through this, but the Spirit is hitting me now, and I got someone that works within so well in the spirit world and as a pastor, and just join us on this. Tell us your thoughts on this.
By the way, Pastor Q is a part of the CLUE organization in Los Angeles, which is Clergy and Laity United for Equality and Justice, and it is an organization that is all over California, all over the country. So I know that there has been some awareness of what's going on. So I am so happy you're here today.
Yeah, I am definitely part of Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice, and also part of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Martin Luther King was the first president of that organization, and if you saw the movie Selma, then you're very familiar with that organization.
Yes.
As it relates to people's gender, I think our problem is that we have the same problem across the board as it relates to laws. In my faith tradition, Jesus says the letter of the law kills, but grace gives life. And I think the problem with us is that we are just consumed by laws, and we always try to use a law to push our own agenda. And anytime you put a law in place, the law should be able to transcend and should be able to push the goal of the highest law, which is love.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, so the
I like
highest
that.
law is love.
Yes.
So an example is when Jesus walked on water, the law of gravity never ceased to exist. He just instituted a higher law, which was the law of aerodynamics, which allowed him to walk on the water. So a lot of times people think that we're going to put a law in place because people are wearing their pants below their belts. All you're going to do is create a mass incarceration, which is what we did.
Yes,
right?
we did.
Well, and that's so. Correct me if I'm wrong. So the letter of the law is different from the spirit of the law.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
because to give you an example, I thought about this. I think it's called Freedom of Religion Law.
Act.
Freedom of Religions Act. Well, that came about because I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a small group of Native Americans that wanted to smoke peyote as part of their religious ritual, and which is illegal outside the ritual. So when they went to court for that, they were able to get the law to say that for your religious purpose, you can smoke peyote,
Right.
and do according to your religion. So they're taking that core of that law, and like you said, going to the letter of the law, and forgetting the spirit of the law is about freedom and love.
Yeah. Well, if you talk about Native Americans, who put that law in place to begin with?
Yes.
Who said that the Native Americans needed a law in order for them to smoke whatever?
Yeah,
They were natives, right?
Yes, yes.
It was only because they were conquered that they have to go according to the laws of the dominant culture.
That's true. And I wanted to say this, so I want to just start out by addressing that because I have a lot of phone calls and that I've been dealing with friends of mine that's from the gay community, and I'm just reaching out that if you see anything that I can do to participate in, to work with the community to help get the word out or help do a better job at interpreting what humanity itself should be, because the reason I brought it up here as an African American male, we are supposed to be the most homophobes of all the groups here in America. And okay, I get some of that. Some of that is true. I grew up with that being very true, but we have a different history with it than what has been told. So I just wanted to say the Larry Yatesasis show. I talked to Carolyn. She's willing to participate. Any of you from the gay community that may see something that we can get involved in, as long as it makes sense. I'm open. So you got my email. If you don't, larryyatesasis@aol.com. Hit me up on the email and call here to show if you call UBN Radio. And I think Carolyn said she's willing to do whatever she can.
Absolutely. In the realm of healing, prayer, conversation, anything to expand the conversation and to also have places of forgiveness. Because when you have a place of pain, when something hits you like that, thinking that people consider you an object rather than human, to me, the whole thing is back to the higher law, which unites us from a place of sacred humanity. And what is painful to people, groups of people, is when the majority or whoever is bringing this up approaches it as though people are not human, that some group of people, selected group of people, are not considered part of the totality of humanity. And that's what happened to blacks. That's what's happened to the immigration situation. It's in all of those. And we'll be addressing some of that as we go later into the program.
Well, we got a phone call, and let me check and see. You might want to put the headphones on there. And hello, caller. You're on the Larry Yatesasis show. How may we help you? Let me put it this way: help us.
Good afternoon. This is Pastor Logan. I'm a part of the march and rally, MLK Legacy rally that Reverend Q is organizing.
Oh, well, how you doing, Pastor?
I'm well, thank you. I'm well.
Have you been listening in on a little bit of what we got started here with?
Sir?
Have you heard a little bit of what we was talking about, addressing some of the crazy stuff that's going on with these laws? And we were just talking about this law here in California where a guy is trying to put on a ballot where it's making it legal to kill gays. And I know we're going to go on and talk about the march and what Pastor Q and yourself are doing, but right now that question was on the air, and what kind of mentality are we dealing with here?
Wow. Well, obviously, individuals who are victims of their own cognitive dissonance, they have a way of trying to dehumanize people in order to mask their own insecurities.
Oh, wow.
And their own fears. So rather than when we experience what's different, something that's different from us and we don't understand, we can't control. People of African descent have been the victims of that or the targets of that for centuries. And we know that people who utilize white supremacy as a means of subjugating and dehumanizing people of African descent do it so that they can villainize them, objectivize them, control them, and eliminate them. So it's the same mentality when you're dealing with people who are of a different orientation, sexual orientation. That's not to say one necessarily, or I necessarily, agree with or practice that particular orientation, but I think people should be allowed to live and breathe and be who they are, regardless of what my opinion might be.
And I tell you something. What's so important about this little bit of this conversation for me right now is that we as African American men are not considered to be reasonable on this topic. And for Pastor Q to speak so eloquent, and for you to speak so eloquent about the rights of human beings, I just think that works really good for this show, Larry Yates' show, because this is the kind of conversation I want to have, and show the world that we can't be painted with the broad brush, and nor do we need to paint other people with the broad brush. And I think as we fight for the freedoms and the equality in law enforcement, jobs in our community, so we have to be kind of embracive of other people that's going through their own challenges and stuff, because as Pastor Q said, the higher order is love.
Yes, sir. No question.
So I think this is a great segue into the Martin Luther King Legacy March.
And that's why I wanted you to be on the show today to co-host with me, because we don't get to do that much, Carolyn. And when we look at Martin Luther King, what would Martin Luther King, tell old Yates here, what would Martin Luther King say about combining all of this together under one? Would he talk about bringing all this under one umbrella for peace and equality, jobs, and?
Yeah. Well, we thought we would do the 47th and celebrate and commemorate the 47th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King in this way because of the climate of what's happening in our society today, as it relates to not just police brutality, but an unjust criminal justice system.
Yes.
No pun intended.
Looking for the just.
Exactly.
Justice.
Looking for the just.
The
Just
just.
us.
Right.
Yes.
So when we look at that, we looked at Dr. King's speech, I Have a Dream speech, and King said, if you thought the Negro, and I'm going to paraphrase, if you thought the Negro came to blow off steam, or if you think if America goes back to business as usual, there would be a rude awakening.
Yes.
That's why the theme for the march is rude awakening.
Tell us about the march. Tell the listeners about the march.
Well, it's going to be in downtown Los Angeles this Saturday, April 4th. It's going to start on Olympic and Broadway at 3 p.m. It's going to go down Broadway, and as you know, they're gentrifying downtown Los Angeles. So we're going to have a person speaking to the contrast between Broadway and Skid Row, because the whole marketing theme for downtown Los Angeles is bringing back Broadway. So we're going to talk about bringing back Broadway, and then what we're doing for Skid Row, and then we're going to stop in Skid Row between on San Pedro and 6th Street, where our brother Africa was killed by police and
lynched.
Yeah, that too.
I'm sorry, Pastor. What did you say?
He was lynched.
Lynched.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. And so in that context, some of his family members are going to be there, and we're going to have a memorial for him there, and some of the other people that have been killed on that block. Not that street, that block.
As we look at police brutality now, that seems to just kind of, I don't know, it just seems to be swelling for a while here. What do you think is at the root of this?
Dr. Logan, you want it?
Oh, you don't want to hear my...
Yes, I do, too. Yes, we do.
Oh, no.
You're on air and we're ready. Yes.
Yates, you don't want to hear that. and Pastor Q, my brother, he knows where I'm coming from. He already knows how angry and upset I am about this whole...
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this.
He just mentioned gentrification. The police, we got to understand historically, the law enforcement in this country, as it relates to people of African descent, has always been a form of control over people of African descent, especially after the Emancipation Proclamation, as a way of controlling and funneling people of African descent into other penal and slavery-type work environments. They were accosted, they were blamed, historically, tracked down, so-called fugitive slaves. And so law enforcement goes way back to a product of chattel slavery. And today, the law enforcement operates as a mechanism of the class that has interest in maintaining power and division, and also interest in developing the downtown area, which is prime real estate, plain and simple.
There's always been an
an
economic interest
Yes.
behind it.
Yeah.
So wait a minute, you
Yeah,
guys
so
are
you
telling
want-
me, I'm a little bit shocked here. You're telling me this is not new with the police abuse.
You tripping. This man got jokes.
He's smart.
This
yes.
should be the comedy. This has to be the comedy hour.
comedy.
Man.
Well, you
I
know,
mean,
Pastor,
it's really sad on a real visceral level, because when we don't understand the source of it, we respond to the symptom as if by dealing with the police that we're really solving the problem. What we really are after in this march is highlighting this issue so that we can get to a matter of dealing with public policy. Because as you address public policy, then you also affect the substructure and system and the systematic way that power is used to displace, to delegitimate and dehumanize people, and therefore move them off of the premises or the lot or the land, so you can then open it up to the development of those who want to make money off the area. Plus, you make money off of the incarceration of people of people of African descent by putting them in jails and prisons, because you keep beds warm and contracts are fulfilled and expectations for occupancy rates are then able to be traded and sold as commodities on Wall Street. It's commodified. It's about making money. It's about selling. It's about selling, buying and selling, and investing and making investors money.
and this goes all the
So
way.
we're still, yes, sir.
And this and what you're saying is this goes and applies to the unequal laws of drug use, and where African Americans are more likely to be put into prisons and jails and stuff because of that. But then that falls down to our educational system, where we're not getting the funding or proper education, so you're going to create that same cycle over and over and over again.
Well, you
And
just open
the
up Pandora's
privatization
box.
of
Yeah,
jails.
you just
yes.
open Pandora's box.
Yes.
I mean, when you really
Oh,
think
yeah.
about it, the three things we're highlighting in the march is unjust immigration laws, income inequality, and police brutality. But all of it links back to income inequality. That's
Yes.
what Dr. Logan just finished speaking to. And so there's a correlation between the fact that the unemployment rate in the black community is always double that of the national average. Right, so all of it, there is an economic piece to it that people don't look at. But as Dr. Logan talked about dealing with policy, one of the policies we're dealing with right now is we just not too long ago won civilian oversight over the sheriff department, not the LAPD, but the sheriff department. And now there's a working group working to determine what those 9 members are going to look like. One of the problems we've been having was they don't want us to have subpoena power.
Right.
Right, because they want to keep everything hush hush. Right.
They want the fox watching watching the hen house.
So this Friday, tomorrow, we're going to be at the courthouse where they're having this meeting with the board that or the team of people, the working group that's supposed to work to get this together, giving our testimony and why we should have subpoena power. And if we have to take it and change the city charter, we'll do that. But the reality is, when King talked about a rude awakening, what they didn't realize, this rude awakening and what's happening behind the scenes in terms of public policy work, they're not ready for it. And we're going to keep pushing. So that's the problem they have to deal with now. They think we're just going to react with violence. That's not going to happen. What we're going to do is we're going to change public policy. And if people are not with what we're trying to do, we're going to get them out of office.
I really, really appreciate that, because when we look at what's going on nationwide, and because I'm gonna be the host here, I'm not gonna call it police state. I'm gonna say, do you believe we're moving towards a police state? Because I'm seeing now more and more people of poor, not necessarily African Americans. Now you're seeing, for instance, you see this this white lady shoot this white guy was it in Philadelphia last week, where he was down on his face in the snow and shot him 2 times in the back.
Not a white woman, a white police officer.
She was a white woman.
I know, but you
Yeah,
said,
I mean
you
a white.
said-
I'm sorry.
You said a white woman.
Okay,
it was not some random
I stand
woman.
corrected.
Yes.
I stand corrected.
I want
and-
to clarify.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
thank you so much, Carolyn. You know how much we need you here at the Larry Yatesasis show. But I really appreciate that. But when you look at that situation, where this white female police officer felt free enough to even shoot a white guy that was handcuffed behind him, face in the ground, and shoot him 2 times in the back. What is going on here?
We already live in a militarized nation. We're not moving towards it. We already moved towards
I like
that.
the way you stated that.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, there's research that's been done. In the month of March 2015, there were 111 people killed here in America. There's only been 52 people killed by police in Britain since the 1900s.
Oh my God!
But in the month of March, we've had 111 people killed by law enforcement. That's a problem.
Well, you know, and let me take you back a little bit, because when I first came to California in the 80s, we had Dara Gates.
Oh.
And under Dara Gates, we had the most brutal, that I thought at the time, because they had this chokehold. It was every month, if not every other week, some brother neck was broke. So when the Rodney King riot hit, it was some of the buildup from all of the abuse from the police department that caused this explosion, and we got rid of Dara Gates and I think, what was his name, the black mayor at the time, Tom Bradley. Mayor Bradley. And then they went and got this brother from Philadelphia that had bombed those black people in the group Move, and brought him and put him in place over the black people, and called him Willie Williams, the first black chief of police here. So it's that switching and moving the chest around is what we have to be focused on, and not let them do that kind of manipulation. What do you think about that?
Well, there's one other dynamic you got to remember, too. In the 80s, you had the infusion of crack cocaine by your president, Ronald Reagan.
Yes.
Well, let me step you. I want you to tie that. But remember, it was wholesale killing in the 80s if the police said you was on PCP.
Okay.
That was the opening door. The only thing a cop had to say was, we thought he was on PCP. And then crack came in after the PCP, which become more and more and more brutality under your president.
No, that was your president. That was your president. They had the nerve to name an airport after him.
Yes.
Oh, was that Ronald Reagan at the time, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Wow. Oof.
You sound
And
like...
you remember that Gary Webb was the newspaper reporter who broke that story.
I didn't know that.
The movie's out now. It came out a few months ago, probably October of last year, November. Kill the Messenger. About the news reporter who broke the story about how drug money from the sale of crack in Los Angeles and other parts of the country was funneled into the Contras.
Yeah, trading arms for the Contras and the whole bit. And so, but you know, let me just say this real quick, and then we'll get more on. The reason I'm bringing this up, to give some of the listeners a little bit of history when they sit down and hear the African Americans speak about what is going on in the community. Now, we had a liquor store on Hyde Park and West Boulevard called the Penny Pincher. Right behind that street was Bryanhurst, the first street that crack was sold in America. And near Hyde Park, which was a park, as we know. I had everybody that you could think of to come to a liquor store. I had brothers to come there one day and said to me, Larry, I got a new hustle. You got to see this. What are you talking about? Make a long story short, I go out. He pops his trunk. He got bags, those commercial garbage bags full of bullets. And I said, well, where are you getting the bullets? He said, well, they are using the Hyde Park as a dump, man. They're dumping all these bullets and stuff over there. He was getting them for free and selling them. So how was the guy with the Uzi getting his bullets? No one asked that question. How is it these young gang members had all of these guns? Okay, we understand they're getting the gun. Where are they getting the bullets? And this is how they was getting the bullets. We reported it to the police department. They did not stop. Police department was most definitely involved in that. They was most definitely involved in that. And so even some of the shootings that was blamed on gangs, they did a study where these guys were shot from across the street with a .357 Magnum, a Glock 9, and was hit dead center this and dead center that, where there was no way in the world just some drug addict could do that. So they was killing to start a lot of the wars. And this is what we've had to deal with in our community. Now I'm getting pissed to the highest pissivity. But go ahead.
Yeah, the truth will make you free.
Yes.
It also make you laugh sometimes. It's so ridiculous.
So there is history here, and we don't want history to continue to be repeated. So this march that is happening on Saturday is to awaken people. And I also want to add, while we're doing things from a position of policy, that I know that there's work being done from a position of consciousness.
Yes.
Because until people start seeing each other as brother and sister and connected through that sacred humanity that we talked about, then it won't end. They'll find ways to create new laws to get around the ones that are already on the books. I personally believe that we have no idea what laws are on the books that need to be implemented because we just keep creating new laws. So there are probably laws that are already there that are to our benefit and to our detriment. But policy is important at this point because it's what people listen to. And the other part of the equation is to ensure that there is a budget to support the policy after it becomes law. Because if it has no financial support, then it won't be implemented. But I encourage us to have this conversation now with real clarity about why it's necessary, who we're calling upon, and what actions need to happen.
Yes, even as the march continues, we're going to have a spiritual aspect to the march as well. It happens to fall on the Christian Passover.
Yes.
So what we're
Jewish Passover.
Jewish Passover, actually.
Jewish Passover.
Yeah, Jewish Passover, which was adopted by the Christians. Okay, there we go. We got that straight. But however, we're going to have Reverend Chip Murray. He's going to lead us in a time. At 6:05, we're doing a die-in.
What a great man.
Yeah, that was the time that Dr. King was assassinated. So we're going to have a die-in at 6:05. We're praying the death angel away from our communities to pass over our communities. So we have that aspect of the march going on as well. So it's not just we want to pray some stuff in existence as we are on the ground doing the work.
I think that's very important because, right now, I think one of the sparks to shine the light at the end of the tunnel that I am looking at, because life, human beings' lives, we're like this car with the battery. There's some positive that's happening here, and I see a rising of the consciousness of us. There's a shift. Pastor, would you speak on that? Because I see a shift in the consciousness. This does not mean we don't have a lot of work to do. But I see a shift in consciousness. And do you feel any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the rude awakening is. I think that when King said if America returns to business as usual, there would be a rude awakening. And at the end of that quote, he talks about revolt. So you're seeing a revolt happening right now. The stuff that's happening was actually prophesied by Dr. King.
Pastor Logan?
And towards the unfortunate and untimely end of his very difficult ministry, he began to talk about the beloved community.
Yes.
Chaos or community was was sort of the polemic that he provided for us to give us a way to choose. It was almost like Joshua at the end of Joshua chapter 24. You got life and death in front of you. Choose you this way who you're going to serve, but that's for me and my house. So, I mean, there's that definite sense that the Spirit of God anointed this season, this time, planted in the hearts of Reverend Q and others of us organizing this march, the idea of calling for God to bring us to a place where we stop the killing, because really the killings are happening because of us. I mean, we're the ones killing each other. Our law enforcement is killing us, and we're killing one another as well. So if it's going to stop, we're going to have to, ask God to give us the power and authority to speak to that demonic assignment and season in our community and begin to transform ourselves. I think in addition to, and as well as the public policy change that we're looking for, is that we're going to adopt a statement or a unity pledge, which calls for a respect of our humanity across ethnicities, across various phenotypes and histories, and calls for us to respect each other's culture, to come together on points that we agree on, which have to do with employment, education, the ending of police brutality and racial profiling, and also to work together economically, wherein, we hire each other, where we support each other's business aspirations, and that we come in a league in terms of supporting one another's enterprises. Because if we don't do that, our competing interests will divide our potential and create the division that will keep us from realizing the potential that we have.
Absolutely. I also want to add, that's beautifully stated, I also want to add, by establishing a vision, we're giving people something to look forward to. And King always said, as well as other leaders, we'd rather be for something than against something. So
that's right.
By adding this, I think it's so appropriate. I have 5 points. We've been celebrating the season for nonviolence between January 30th, which was Gandhi's assassination, and April the 4th, King's assassination. So we're coming to the close of that season. But each day at 7 a.m., I've been leading meditation online, on the phone, with many people across the country. And I want to highlight 5 things that I think are so appropriate for what's happening this weekend. One is an ideal of witnessing. These are qualities and activities that we do. The poet Gwendolyn Brooks said, "We're each other's bond." Those who practice nonviolence cannot close their eyes to injustice or cruelty. We are here to be a witness for justice and compassion. Are you willing to stand up for truth by your presence, your words, and your actions today? Self-sufficiency. People need the dignity of work and the opportunity to provide for themselves and their families. Economic self-sufficiency is a requirement for a nonviolent world. Citizenship. Robert Mueller, former Assistant Secretary General to the United Nations, urged, use every letter you write, every conversation you have, every meeting you attend to express your fundamental beliefs and dreams. Make a difference in your community by becoming involved. So I say this to the listening audience. Join the march on Saturday. Become involved. Know your community. Know what it's standing for and what needs to change. And the last one, well, there are 2 others. Release. A Sufi proverb says, when the heart weeps for what it has lost, the spirit laughs for what is found. Release the weight of your past, the judgments of yourself and others, and be the change you wish to see. You really do make a difference in the world. And the last quality is celebration. Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has."
Wow, very, very powerful.
So I share that.
Pastor Q?
Yes.
I share that, and I'll bring it with me on Saturday to share.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This
I love
because
it.
it's so quick. This hour's going by quick. We got about 10 minutes here, so go ahead, Pastor Q.
Well, I would also like to add that we thought that Latinos were being killed at the second highest rate. It was actually Native Americans. So the history is there.
In this area.
Yeah. Native Americans are killed in America. We have a speaker, Sonny Skyhawk. He will be speaking as well on Saturday. But it's a history in this country. The same people that say, well, if ISIS is killing people, then all Muslims are bad. We love to throw the baby out with the bathwater because it's easy for us to hate that way. And so this march is, when we thought about it, I didn't realize how significant it was going to be. I didn't even know that Martin Luther King's assassination fell on Passover.
Yes.
I didn't know. You brought that to my attention today.
Well,
so
at least this year. So
This year, yes.
after we set the date, then I was looking at it and realized it fell. I was like, oh.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's definitely something spiritual behind it. And don't underestimate what's going to be done through you.
And you and I spoke about this off air, and I made a statement that especially I think what sparked this was starting with Trayvon, and Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown and then the gentleman on Skid Row, Africa. Seeing all of these African American men being slaughtered the way they've been lynched, the way the brother said, because that's basically it's a new lynch law, a consciousness.
Right.
And when we're looking at this evil that seemed, yes, I said evil, that seemed to have revisited its head, and I think we start out saying, well, we're going to give those young men that gave their lives a voice. But we're not giving them a voice. They have given us a voice.
Absolutely.
And with them giving us that voice, then we should speak as loud and as clear with purpose as we possibly can.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And one other thing that just came to mind, when there are shootings in a white community, not only does the media come, but they bring all sorts of resources to help the young people deal with it. I remember Columbine, and it's like the whole world descended on the area so that the young people could have psychological help to assist them through the challenge of seeing their fellow humans killed. So I invite us to not only do the marching, but also to be an open space for our young people who aren't able to always articulate the pain that they feel, the sadness, the disappointment. In the healing forums that I've done through several different organizations, when the young people start speaking, they have a sense of fear about just being in the world, going to school, not sure how they're going to survive just getting through high school or college. So I just have our hearts open that we have a new day, a new idea, a new commitment to our young people, that they have a place to talk, to be healed, and to be supported as they go forth.
And let me say this to both the pastors, and you guys have given me a renewed sense of what church is. You're redefining once again what church should be, in my mind, my eyes. And you're taking it from just brick and mortar. You're taking it from just being a mega money making business to the church is about helping the people and going to the people. And I just want to thank you guys for your hard work, because I think that's just what it's all about.
Thank you for having us.
I want to say that while I appreciate that, and certainly I do, I want to say that we're more of the we're not the exception. We're part of a larger group that oftentimes gets ignored. What you find typified and stereotyped in public and popular media is oftentimes the buffoonery and the superficial, and those who, as you have said, are basically rapists and I almost want to say pimps of our community.
Oh, there's no question about it.
We're more of the rule than the exception. There are a whole lot of pastors, sisters, and brothers out here who are working hard, who unsung heroes, who will never get in the spotlight. They'll never be on TV, but they work hard. I mean,
Pastor, that's why we dedicate this show to our audience, that we do have some followings, that we are reaching out to people, and that's why we want to use our show, the Larry Yatesasis show with Carolyn and you guys. This is your home as well, to give some of them as much voice as I can give. That I want to dedicate my show and what I'm doing here, and elevating some of those hardworking people out there in the ministry, that is not just being pimps, but really doing the real work.
Yes,
well,
and
I appreciate that very much.
I just wanted to also add that this is an interfaith coalition. There are people from every background, every level of interest, and people working together for change.
Yeah, we have over 57 endorsers.
Yes.
Some from Buddhist background, Muslim, all kinds of faith working together. And we are modeling that we don't necessarily have to agree on everything, on every doctrine, but we agree on one doctrine, and that is we're all human and we all love each other.
Well, I love that. Pastor, you want to comment on that?
No, I mean, he said it. You can't say any more succinctly and prophetically and articulately. It's a means of pulling us together. It's not just based on some ephemeral kind of kumbaya moment. This is about Dr. King's statement when he said we're either going to learn how to live together as brothers and sisters, or we'll perish together as fools. And this is a symbolism of us living together. And it's also, and I'm just going to say this, Dr. King, on the last night of his life, said, I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. I like to suggest that when we come together, as we will on Saturday, that we're symbolizing in some prescient way the promised land.
Yes.
Which is a place where everybody has a voice, everybody has a sense of dignity, everybody has worth, and everybody has destiny, and it's collective.
Yeah, and the marching itself is actually out of Joshua 1:3. As we march, we're taking territory from the evil forces in the promised land.
And and when I started out by talking about that higher consciousness, and then I'm seeing the movement of that higher consciousness, and that light that they were talking about. Yeah. Carolyn, you was about to say something? Because we got about 2 minutes left. This time has gone by so fast.
No, I snuck mine in already with my statements. And I really do say that we are the light. Each one has a light within us. We're being guided.
Absolutely.
Spiritually, divinely guided in this action. But what is so magnificent is that there is leadership. That's sometimes a question that comes up. Who's going to be the leader? Well, you're all the leader. Yeah. And right now we have some very powerful people, some in the studio, some outside, who said yes.
We're at 3:49. We got a minute. So what I want to do, Pastor on the phone, leave us with the word of wisdom. We're going to give everybody a shot at giving us a word of wisdom. Make it quick if you could.
One thing I would say is our coming together is the fulfillment of Dr. King's vision for a beloved community. And as we symbolize that, we are for what it means to be together. And we are unifying on the basis of our collective.
Well, thank you so much. Pastor Q, give us some.
Well, the legacy of Dr. King is what we're highlighting here. I don't even want to give a quote. I just want to highlight that this is the legacy of Dr. King. We're living the legacy of Dr. King.
Okay, that's the show for now. So what I want to do, Carolyn, you want to say something real quick?
Well, the legacy lives on.
Legacy live on. Anyway, thank you, Pastor Q. Carolyn, thanks for coming in and help me out here. Pastor on the phone, I love you guys. And if there's anything that I can do, just call me. This is your home. And remember, a nation can rise no higher than it elevates its woman. This is Larry Yatesasis Show. See you next week. Thank you. Power out.